This is Plant-Based Briefing. Bird flu highlights the problems with factory farming by Jennifer Molidor at the Center for Biological Diversity at biologicaldiversity.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, host of this curated content plant-based podcast, where I narrate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living in about 10 minutes or less every weekday with permission. And I'm pleased to have permission from the Center for Biological Diversity to share their content. They have a number of publications, including one called Food X, which is a newsletter about creating a just food system that protects people, wildlife, and the environment. And that's where this article is from today. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Bird flu highlights the problems with factory farming by Jennifer Molidor at biologicaldiversity.org. Here at the Center for Biological Diversity, we're closely monitoring the outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1, aka bird flu. Wild animals like endangered California condors and even a polar bear have contracted H5N1. So have more than 180 other species of wild birds and mammals, including federally protected wildlife. This virus has also been decimating marine mammals, along with animals confined at meat and dairy operations, causing the ecological havoc of mass culling and disruptions to food chains. Factory farming and disease. Factory farming is at the heart of the latest spread of bird flu. The environmental and health threats posed by factory farms too often go unaddressed due to this powerful industry's ability to evade regulation. Cats at dairies are dying from bird flu, which appears to be spreading between wild birds, cats, and dairy cattle. Bird flu has led to the euthanizing of more than 90 million poultry in 48 states since 2022, 500 million globally in the last few years. Confining farmed animals in unnaturally dense populations in industrial facilities causes explosive rates of viral transmission. It also dramatically increases opportunities for mutations that make the virus better adapted to new kinds of hosts, like humans and wild animals. How we're taking action. Community and wildlife conservation groups, including the Center for Biological Diversity, are calling on the Centers for Disease Control to ramp up the federal response to bird flu in factory-farmed dairy cattle. We sent a letter linked here urging the CDC to improve testing of farm worker exposure to H5N1 and coordinate a data-driven interagency response. Dairy, beef, and the rise of bird flu. Bird flu is confirmed in nearly 50 cattle herds across 9 states. A third farm worker tested positive in late May after exposure to infected cattle and developed respiratory symptoms. It's hard to really know how many cattle have been infected, and that's down to an egregious lack of testing and reporting. Federal agencies have been testing mostly sick-appearing animals, only a few cattle within large herds. Motivations to self-report may not be high if livelihoods are on the line. We know from COVID-19 that public data, tracking, and reporting are vital to containing a viral outbreak, yet agencies are making the same mistake with a slow initial response. Bird flu may have been circling in cattle as early as December 2023. There were early warning signs of an outbreak on dairy farms this February, but the U.S. Department of Agriculture only announced the outbreak in March. By April, the USDA had shared only partial genome data and indicated that some farmers aren't letting them properly test. State agriculture agencies also appear to be complicating the CDC's ability to track the spread of the disease. Bird flu viral particles have been found in dairy products on shelves in 20 to 40% of samples tested, 20% officially and 40% in an informal academic survey, and in wastewater. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has also conducted tests on ground beef. Right now, both the USDA and the CDC are heavily leaning on the processes of pasteurization and fully cooking foods like beef and eggs to keep people safe. Some health experts recommend drinking only ultra-pasteurized dairy and not consuming any undercooked beef, though the safest and most environmentally responsible route is to avoid these products altogether. Beef and dairy products are top food sources of emissions, habitat loss, and wildlife killings, yet some people are consuming raw milk intentionally. Action is now crucial. A new study linked here provides the clearest picture yet of how biodiversity loss and climate change fuel the rise of disease. A warmer world with degraded ecosystems is ripe for the proliferation of pathogens. What will it take for people in the United States to step back from the factory farms spreading disease and destroying so much of our planet? Community health and safety, like factory farms themselves, are an issue of environmental justice. Experts have long warned that factory farms are pandemic incubators, putting the most marginalized at the greatest risk. To prevent avian flu from becoming the next pandemic, agencies should be testing animals and workers, including at non-dairy operations. If this virus takes off in hogs, we may be unprepared for the ensuing crisis. Pigs tend to be better conveyors of disease for human infections. Though recent reported U.S. cases have been mild, the global fatality rate from H5N1 infections is a staggering 51%. Avian influenza has killed millions of farmed and wild animals, but isn't yet widespread in humans. We've seen what can happen with COVID-19. We must redouble efforts to protect biodiversity and stop the next pandemic. That means shifting away from industries like factory farming. What you can do: read our letter to the CDC linked here, urging a stronger federal response, and read about our work during the COVID-19 pandemic linked here, and learn how on-site emergency culling creates severe environmental issues. You just listened to Bird Flu Highlights the Problems with Factory Farming by Jennifer Molidor at biologicaldiversity.org, and I'm your host, Marian Erickson. And I'm sure my regular listeners know this, but it's not just factory farming that is an issue, it's animal farming, wherever these animals are confined unnaturally. And as of the time of this recording, there has been a human death from the H5N1 virus. So we're going to be hearing a lot more in the news about this topic. So if you'd like to check out some other episodes about avian flu and how animal farming fuels pandemics, I'll link these in the show notes, but check out bonus number 1, Go Vegan or Risk Another Pandemic, episode 157, How Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations or CAFOs Fuel Pandemics, 391, The Connection Between Deadly Pandemics and Our Diets, and 785, Bird Flu Infects Dairy Cows and Farm Worker in the U.S. So check those out if you're interested, and please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.